What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets Aber. We're going to be talking a little MLB today, and last night it's like a bad game you have in basketball. It's like your team loses by 40 points. I want to just put it off. I don't even want to look at the video. I don't need to see everything I did wrong. I don't need to understand. Played too much of Coors, did too much of this. But then I look at the winning scores, and literally these guys have three Padres with the combined 3 points, and they won tournaments because you got a couple plays right last night, you're a winner. It's not usually like that on 13-game slates, but this was a very low-scoring, annoying slate, and I'm ready to move on, put it behind me, and move on to today.
Hashtag it's baseball. That's it.
Hashtag, yeah, it's baseball. Although I don't remember this season, even on the small slate, that being a score being that low to win tournaments. I mean, it was really, especially on FanDuel, it was really, really ugly business.
Yep.
Any thoughts on the slate overall tonight before we jump in? I mean, I know we're going to have a lot of weird pitching. Basically,
yes, that is exactly my first comment is weird pitching, to say the least.
Yep. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let's get into it. We'll go game by game. If you pull your screen.
Want me to share my screen first? Okay.
Yeah, let's pull your screen up and do our thing. Yeah, it's weird today. All right, so. First game, Pittsburgh, Washington. This is a game that initially I would just say, I don't want to do anything. The only thing I'd say is the pitching is so bad. He's looked so bad, but it is the Pirates. Don't strike out as much against lefties as they do against righties. They put the ball in play, and we've got a guy who hasn't put up 10 fantasy points who's going to be fairly chalky at 7K in Patrick Corbin. I don't think I'm going to do this, but I think you're every bit as good just to flip it on the other side and play Tyler Anderson instead. Like, I really don't think there's a huge difference. I think Corbin, you just get the better upside. But he's in my mix right now, Corbin, and I even think I might consider Anderson if he was maybe he's a little cheaper. But I don't love that a 7K, chalky Patrick Corbin, who, like I said, hasn't put up 10 fantasy points. He hasn't put up a fantasy point to match his price in a while. I'm still probably going to flirt with it because we'll get into it. There is no pitching to love on this slate.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say something different. I thought you were going to say, Corbin is kind of weak, so I kind of want to flip the switch. And I thought you were going to say flip the switch and play Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, no, I meant just a pitcher, but
yeah, and that's kind of what I'm inclined to do. Is, well, I will say that pitching being weird, I will say that Corbin rakes to be, a top pitcher on the slate from a value perspective. He just does. And that's why obviously he's going to be, 20-25% owned, I imagine.
Maybe more.
But I do think that also that Pittsburgh, because they remain cheap, they, I think that the same argument I made last night kind of applies today with respect to being a nice complementary stack to San Diego. I still think that that's the case. And I would argue that Pittsburgh's in a better situation tonight because you get that extra leverage off of what could be a chalky pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like Pittsburgh, subject to the same limitations as usual, right? 15-game slate, the chances that if you play 5 Pittsburgh guys, it's going to work out for you is almost zero, especially considering that it's not the slate where there are these big 11K pitchers that are like priorities. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would sprinkle some Pittsburghs in with bigger hitting stacks. And I'm, as gross as Corbin's been, I mean, I'm probably going to use him.
Yeah.
But I like other guys. I like worse pitchers better, I think. We'll get to them later. But it's like you said, it's ugliness out there.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, I agree. I don't think I'm fully stacking Pittsburgh just because because of the lack of pitching. I find a lot of lineups that I like today. So
yeah,
but I do like the idea of, I think your priorities, if you're going to play these guys, are Stallings, Reynolds, Evans, and Newman. Evans and Newman largely because the pricing. Stallings and Reynolds are reasonable, Reynolds especially, but Stallings, batting in the middle of the lineup as a catcher at 3.7 against a pitcher that's just prone to giving up tons of hard contact. And it is a slight stadium upgrade playing in Washington for Pittsburgh versus Pittsburgh. So I can get behind some of that. I'm not really that into the bats in Washington They're expensive for the most part. The guys I'd want to play anyway are expensive. Maybe you could try the Starlin Castro or Josh Harrison or something for cheaper. But I really think it's either Trey Turner, who's the expensive guy I do like, or nothing for me on that side.
Yeah, I agree with you. By the way, that Philip, I don't know if you said Philip Evans, but
I did,
Philip
yeah.
Evans stands out as the best one-off value, the best like pure value on the Pittsburgh side, followed by, like you said, Newman and Reynolds.
Yep. And then on the Washington side, to me, like I said, just Turner for me. I actually think that Soto is always fine against the lefty. Just I don't need to pay $6K for him on this slate. And even Turner at 5.5 is going to have, usually with Turner's against the lefty, people play him like 30%. It's kind of weird because a lot of his value comes from stealing bases, and he's going to have a lower stolen base upside, but he does have the power upside against lefties. So Turner definitely is the one guy I'm looking at on Washington. Let's get over to your Yankees here, and both sides of this game. You had two good pitchers in Coors. What do we call it? Coors Field number 2.
Coors East.
Coors East. Yeah, that's better. Coors East. I think this might be a spot I want to get involved in. It's weird because again, big slate, lots of good hitting spots, but really playing in this stadium with two lefties facing two teams that just punish lefties.
Hey, can I suggest to you to do a little research? I again, I could have been hallucinating. Is it possible this game is not in that same stadium?
Did something happen that I may have missed?
I don't know. I think they might be playing in Buffalo. I don't know. I think that there's something going on.
All right, I'll take a look. I'll look into that.
I heard literally, like, I was listening to something else and it was like off on the side of my ear. So just let's make sure where this game is going to be.
Yeah, I think it's obviously an important thing. So that changes like almost everything for me. And by the way, I did just say that, but if it is in fact in another stadium, especially, I actually see the merit in playing Ryu here. Like, I think that there's a good enough case based on the fact that, okay, all these other pitchers are pretty terrible. Ryu's actually a really, really good pitcher. Now, he only had 3 strikeouts in his last game against the White Sox. Forgive him. You know what I mean? Like, it's the White Sox against the lefty. He had a bad outing against Houston before that. That's Houston. It's going to happen. And the Yankees are the Yankees. But Ryu just is overall still a very good pitcher, and just somebody I'm considering who's going to be a low-owned version. I love Urias in general, but I don't think Urias is so much better of a pitcher than Ryu. And the Yankees, while they crush lefties, there are strikeouts in this lineup. So
no, it is in Buffalo still. Okay, I was just
okay. I'm glad because I was about to say we probably should look into that before we talk about the hitting. Because
yeah. I heard something weird going on. Okay.
Yeah, but you've got guys who can accidentally, hit a fly ball and have it be a home run. And these Yankees, obviously Judge, Stanton being the main ones you want to go for. But if you did want to fill out a stack with a cheap LeMahieu, Andahar, even a really cheap Clint Frazier at the bottom of the lineup, I'm not doing it yet. I'm not sure what I'm doing entirely, but I do think I want to take some spots in this game. And I think I'm a little bit higher, though, on the Toronto side of it. The problem is the Toronto is a little more, Judge and Stanton are expensive, but we don't get the same value guys that I really want in my lineup. I don't want to be playing Jonathan Davis and Riley Adams as much. Riley Adams is the cheap catching option that you can throw into the stack. Grichuk makes some sense, Teoscar, but the main guys are going to be the main guys as always, and that's always going to be Vlad and Bichette with a side note, Simeon. But Teoscar and Grichuk stand out a little bit for being affordable enough. And I sort of like that. I can get behind this Toronto stuff. And it's, again, Montgomery's another guy who I'm not like, I don't go out there going, I want to pick on Jordan Montgomery. I think he's a decent pitcher, and the Yankees obviously have one of the best bullpens in baseball. I just think there's enough upside here for a Toronto team that can hit anyone. You could have told me on this kind of slate that Toronto was facing just any even slightly above league average pitcher. But then when you throw in a lefty in there, I just feel like there's huge explosive upside for them. But especially Guerrero and Bichette are the two guys. And I know they're expensive, but I don't mind them playing ahead of some of the Coors guys.
I actually had one thing I wanted to bring up about this game. I guess it's more and more a theory than anything else. So what I'm going to show you, this is like actually from a page from the True DFS website. Actually, this is like my rankings. Like, just as of now, they could change. So the reason I did this is I re-ranked everybody on the slate just by pure points per dollar, right? Like no upside, no nothing like that. And you'll see that like Chris Gittins in this game like rates to be one of the top values or whatever. But be careful like when you use optimizers and you run stuff and you end up with like a bunch of Chris Gittins, for example, like in one-offs. So I talk about this a lot. Like you look at these four guys at the top of the list. You have Dahlbeck, Gittins, Newman, and Evans, for example. Like these guys are not the same. Like I would have no problem like getting to Bobby Dahlbeck as a one-off, right? Because I know that he can actually hit the ball out of the ballpark. You know what I mean? Like if like the sky falls the right way. You know what I mean? And even Newman and a little bit, and Evans a little bit, as opposed to and Rylan Adams just because he fills out a good position, right? He's an okay 2K. But like if you get to Gittins, I mean Gittins just takes up a first base spot and he has no power. So it's So I don't know. I just figured that's the only note I had for this game.
So yeah, based on what you just said, the guys you would look at in that situation for me would be the catcher, like we talked about, the minimum.
Yeah.
Or I would look at Evans as being a slightly better play for the position eligibility and the fact that he's batting in the middle of the order. And then Dahlbeck, you have the home run upside. So very well put. I totally agree. That's the kind of value you'd rather want. But if you're stacking the Yankees, you can include Gittins as well. Right. That's a great way of putting it, actually, of what value makes sense and what value makes sense in stacks. And I don't think Gittins makes sense as a one-off unless for some reason they batted him in the middle of the order today, which would.
All right. And there's no chance they put him in the middle of the order.
And that ain't happening. All right. Mets in Chicago. Again, a little bit the weather. This is my flaw from yesterday. And I said I wasn't going to look back, but I do want to say that I do think it's a mistake to play it the way that I did. A little bit I have to figure it out with our live before lock stuff, because if it's really questionable weather and it looks like the game legitimately could have a chance of being canceled after like the fifth inning, obviously you don't want to take hitters in that situation. And I just let it get to me a little bit too much. And I got off, we talked about some of the stuff from
you got to listen to this to the Mrs. Sheets forecast though. I looked up over my shoulder. I said it's sunny. I don't know what to tell you.
Next time, you know what? Maybe we should put a little thing on the site for her forecast.
Exactly.
Here's Mrs. Sheets' forecast.
Exactly.
I'm into it. I like that. So the fraud Taiwan Walker, the so-called fraud.
Right.
The guy who's put up 29, 32, 21, 35 in his last six starts, in four out of his last six starts. And he gets a Cubs team that can strike out. He's going to have some ownership today, but he's not going to be as high. He's not going to be like the obvious chalk who they go to. And the guys who are the obvious chalk that they're going to go to are hugely high-risk pitchers. Walker keeps the ball down. He's got strikeout upside. Definitely a guy I'm looking at today. Initial first looks, he's definitely one of my top six pitchers, and maybe end up much higher, but it's going to be tricky to figure out all the pitching today. And then we've got the Mets bats here, which, look, it's not a fun lineup in general. It's not a fun stadium to try and play players in, and they're not at fun prices for the most part, with the exception of Francisco Lindor, Jonathan VR, and are probably maybe Billy McKinney. He's another one of the value plays I like. So those would be my favorites from the Mets. I think you can pick on, we can go after Mills a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be my priority stack. I just like those bats especially, and even Dom Smith is reasonable at 4.1. He's been swinging the bat well.
Fraud's in play for me. I mean, he's top. I kind of just I'll piggyback off of your assessment. I have him top 5 pretty much. And given like the guys that I ranked up ahead of him, I certainly see him moving up the ladder. Right. I'm kind of with you on that. I like Taiwan Walker as a very legit option, and I have him right now as only like 15% owned. So we'll see where that goes.
I think my guess would be around 20 or 25, but still, either way, it's. Yeah. And I'm looking through, by the way, I can just say this like to feel good. I don't think we have any weather to worry about for games even being like, maybe things could change by the afternoon, but at first look, there's really nothing we should be worrying about at all. So that's a good feeling. Because that was the issue I had with this game yesterday. But yeah, so what do you think about the Mets bats?
I didn't get to it, but you're like the second or third person that I respect who's told me that Francisco Lindor is a good player today. I wish he would have done something, but I think, and you know what, you and somebody else also, I think, commented the same thing. Did you tell me yesterday that that he was hitting the ball better or something like that, even though stuff wasn't happening or something? Yeah, because another person who I think is pretty smart said the exact same thing this morning, that even though nothing's been falling, he's actually been making better contact and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he had a home run a couple days ago. He went 2 for 4 that next day. And then the other thing that I like about what he's doing lately is he's run a couple times. He got caught a couple times, but he also stole a few bases. He also is he's taking his walks, which means he's seeing the ball better to me. And he's not striking out quite as high as he was early in the season, even though he's still striking out. So I think we can look at Francisco Lindor as value until he gets back to 5K. I really think he's like a value play as long as he's under 5K. He's too good of an all-around player and too much upside everywhere. He just had a rough year. It happens, no reason the rest of the season he won't be the best shortstop in baseball, except for maybe because of Tatis. But yeah, I love Lindor, and I don't think I'm going to stack it in a bullpen game for the Cubs because it's not like it's a terrible bullpen or anything. It's not great, but it's just a bullpen. It's okay. But I don't want to stack a bad, not so great offense. I just do really like the Lindor play. And then I don't mind if you want to fill in with a VR or a Dominic Smith, or if you wanted to play Pete Alonso, I'm never going to say, hey, that's wrong. But Billy McKinney and Lindor are the ones who stand out to me the most.
So when I looked at the, as we move ahead, when I looked at the slate for today, I was anticipating something that is just not showing up. I don't quite understand why. When I was looking at the slate, I'm like, okay, it's going to be, most of the numbers are going to lead people to San Diego, as will the ownership. And, if you're not playing San Diego, you're just going to be playing Cleveland because they're up against Matt Harvey, right? But for whatever reason, the numbers are just not panning out for me that way. Am I like, I have Cleveland as like maybe like the 5th best stack on like raw points, but it's close with some others. I guess it's close. And from a value perspective, they're like maybe like 5th or something like that. Are they going to be like the most popular? I mean, like, I can't imagine them not scoring 10 runs. Like, that's the problem. You know what I mean? Like, Harvey gives up 10 runs a game now at this point.
He looks like he's the Matt Harvey of old, but not the Matt Harvey of really old. You know what I mean? He's the Matt Harvey of 4 years ago when we were picking on him every day.
Right.
But I'm surprised by this personally. Like, I'm surprised. I actually thought the run total would be close to 6. I thought that and it's 5. It's 5.1. I was really fully anticipating this would be the secondary chalk to the Coors situation. But you look at the early ownership projections, and it definitely has it a little bit different. I do think that Jose Ramirez is the best play on the slate in raw points, in my opinion, including all the Coors guys. I don't think there's a better play you can have. You have the perfect combination of power and speed, which is exactly what, Harvey is going to give up tons of hard contact to especially to lefties. Actually, he does it to righties too nowadays. He's very equal opportunity that way. But Jose Ramirez is also like, what I love about Ramirez is his problem. The reason he doesn't steal even more bases is he hits too many doubles and triples and home runs. Right. He hasn't been running as much this year, but my guess is if he gets on, if Harvey walked him early in the game or something, you're going to see him take off. So I think he's legit like the best play on the slate. I think, Rosario's affordable. Both Rosarios are affordable. I like the double Rosario situation. I think. Yeah,
this is crazy. So aside from Ramirez, everybody's, Hernandez is kind of, but everybody's like dirt cheap.
Right. Partly because they're not very good. Most of them, not all of them. Okay. But even like Josh Naylor is that, like, even if he's batting 7th, I'll do that. That's immense power against a guy whose biggest problem is strikeouts. And when you eliminate that strikeout risk, we saw it yesterday, and you made a good point about about Milwaukee and the Milwaukee Cincinnati. Like, not that Milwaukee went off or anything, but they had the home. Vogelbach immediately with the home run. And when you get a low strikeout pitcher, when the team's biggest or certain players' biggest problem is strikeouts, right, it's really, really tempting to pick on it. Bobby Bradley, I think, is an awesome play at 4K. Probably the first baseman that, at least in my first build, I came up with. Bradley, Naylor, Rosarios, both Rosarios. And by the way, it almost worked. I feel like I love doing it. I always used to love that. We loved the Bogdanovich thing right, together. There's no logic based on it, but it's always kind of fun. Yeah. But when they're in the same lineup, batting 2nd and 4th, and they're both good hitters and in a great spot, I think that this is just a good situation. I think the one you're going to see less ownership on because the pricing is Cesar Hernandez, and I think Bobby Bradley because his price got raised so much. So just keep that in mind, and also don't. I don't want to say don't leave Harold Ramirez out of stacks, but if you're going to make multiple Indian stacks, I would suggest you have some Harold Ramirez in there as another cheap value. There's a lot of good value that we could have used a little bit more yesterday when we had when we thought we had actual pitchers. But it goes to show you, by the way, if you look at, I mean, I know he got hurt anyway, Glass now, which was, but that's happening like crazy. Is it, Sheets, do you think I'm going to jump to subjects. I think it's important. Do you think it's a coincidence that all of these pitchers, I mean, every top pitcher has, in the last 10 days, has had some sort of mistake, not everyone, but most of them, Scherzer, DeGrom, what's his name for Cleveland, Bieber. And then you think that may be a response to this ball chafing nonsense? I think that's
what I was trying to get into with you yesterday. That's the working narrative right now.
Right.
And I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. Bauer too. I mean.
Yeah, well, Bauer didn't get injured at least. He just pitched like shit.
No, he pitched bad. You know what I mean? Like.
No, but these guys all got injured.
Oh, did Bieber get injured?
Bieber he said afterwards that he had like a strained something or whatever, and
he had a strained bit of Vaseline on his hand.
But yeah, I'm looking at the weather. It doesn't look like the weather is particularly bad or good for this time of year hitting in Cleveland. I can't figure out. I would have thought this game had a higher total. And before we leave this game real quick, I do think we have to mention DJ Stewart, assuming that, I mean, he's going to be right in the middle of the order. He's 2.3 and he has power. He will come out against lefties, but he has power and he's 2.3K. So I would put him in the same good value as opposed to the other guys. And he's not going to, DJ Stewart is never owned. And it's always great when you get that low owned home run upside guy. This guy could be batting third tonight and 2.3, you know, hit a number of home runs this year. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with actually any of the individual Orioles. I just don't want to fully stack another fairly a bullpen game, especially away from Baltimore. But what do you think? I mean, does that make sense with you as DJ Stewart and maybe even a guy like Austin Hayes or Mountcastle at their cheap prices?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not really quite getting down to that level, but I'll never have any problem with those guys down there.
Yeah, I think Stewart would be my favorite of the value bets we mentioned, except for no, I think he's my favorite. All right, Boston, Atlanta. In Atlanta, important to pay attention to that one. Boy, you know, I gotta say, teams that play in the AL East already, especially lefties, kind of feel bad for them. Like I feel like if Eduardo Rodriguez came out here to LA, and not that our division is tough, don't get me wrong, but you don't have, you know, there's only one team you really fear in terms of their hitters. And I feel like in the AL East, I mean, you have to face the Yankees, and then you have to face their other matchups are going to have to be against the Blue Jays, who just these guys just mash left-handed pitching. And then Rodriguez then you get to play in Baltimore, and then as a bonus here, you get to play the National League, but you have to play Atlanta. Like, but Eduardo Rodriguez is a guy who's to me a perfect tournament play today. I never like pitchers against Atlanta, so I don't know how much of him I'm going to have. He has had the nightmare matchup of, I mean, Houston, New York, Houston, even Philly. That's no picnic again with their righties. Toronto. It's just he finally gets a matchup with a team that at least is in the National League, at least has a bad bottom of the order. There are some soft spots in the lineup, even though they're a good overall lineup. So I have some interest here in Eduardo Rodriguez. Any interest in either pitcher for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you said, I mean it's ugly. So I mean, it's in that same range with Castillo, which we'll get to later. I think it's probably a better option. But and Haney at 8,100, who's going to be chalkier, you know? So yeah, I guess Erod's fine.
Like 5% ownership with the same upside to me,
especially if Acuna's out, which I think he's going to be for a while, right? Is that what it said?
That would be my guess, and that does well. Okay, I had him guessed as out, and then I looked at some things, listened to some things this morning, and people seem to think that there's a chance he'll play. I don't really understand what's happening. So
he isn't expected to miss additional time. Okay.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't be. I mean, they should do whatever that has to happen with him. Like they should treat him with kid gloves. He deserves it. And I'm not. I get the argument if you wanted to play Atlanta bats here today too, because even though Erod is good, he does give up some of his. People will say, "Well, look at his numbers. He's done this and that." I'm like, "Well, look at who he's facing. Look what those teams do on average. You have to measure. You have to weigh it." So I don't see the need to try to pick on Erod as much today. And with Boston, okay, so maybe am I crazy to consider Tucker Davidson?
Well, Boston, I think is going to be the pivot. Like as far as like the ownership, I think people are going to play Boston a lot.
I totally don't think so. But
okay.
Go ahead. I think away from Boston, they're just not going to see it as much. I think you're going to get ownership on JD Martinez.
Oh yeah, I guess.
And maybe Kike, depending on where he hits. But I don't think it's going to be a major stack. And I like those guys, by the way. I like Boston hitters.
Well, actually, there's Cleveland first, so yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I have Boston next. And well, who do you think would be next after Cleveland? You know what I mean? If you had San Diego, Cleveland, who else besides Boston would be next?
Let's wait to get into it because I want to talk it through before I do. I've listened and I've read my list, but I don't want. With baseball, actually with both sports. Sometimes I feel like I figure it out as I want the early show sometimes to be a little bit figuring it out as we go because I don't really have it decided yet. I've got a lot of maybe this and maybe this is, but by the end of the show I usually have a pretty strong idea of what I'm going to do.
I don't even know what you're going to do. I'm just curious what other people are going to do.
Well, yeah. Okay. So what other? Yeah, I think that there's some value that's out there. San Diego is going to be so massively owned,
right.
For reasonable reason with their thing. I think you're going to see some of. I think you'll see some Houston. I think you'll see actually a lot of Houston, and Cincinnati, Milwaukee will get some attention. But I just don't see people paying these prices for Boston, the hitters you really want, except for JD, who's struggling, but has dropped down to 4.7 versus a lefty. And I would be probably just hate myself if JD Martinez hits 2 home runs tonight. I don't have him like 30%. He'll be the priority play for me in this game. He and Jose Ramirez are two of my favorite. They're probably my 2 favorite non-Coors bats, or 2 of my favorites.
To answer your question, no, I'm not getting any Tucker Davidson. Should I?
I don't think it's like a great play or anything. I'm just thinking out loud, like, a guy they haven't seen before. Maybe they come to a National League park, big stadium downgrade, bottom of the order has been really bad. Has a lot of strikeouts in it. That was just sort of thinking out loud on a weak pitcher slate. I think it's mostly just going to be Rodriguez for me, but I just wanted to throw it out there. I don't want to play Bogaerts and Devers at these prices, and I don't think other people will either. I think you're talking about JD, Renfroe, Kike as the plays.
Well, with Corbin at 7K. I mean, you're going to get, if you do play this guy Davidson in that same price range, you're going to get him at like 0% ownership. So that's especially considering that Boston could be one of the top 5 teams that people go after. So that is definitely something to consider on. Like I said, on a slate where no pitcher is safe. I like another 7K guy maybe a little better though, so we'll get to that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't really like it. I just was thinking out loud because this slate feels like a multi-entry slate to me. It doesn't keep a tight core and just play one lineup. Yeah. That's really also maybe it's just my own personal brain because it worked so poorly for me last night just to play the high buy and stuff.
Yeah.
It's sort of, and by the way, when you do that, we talk so much about you want the safety from pitching and all that stuff, and you still didn't even get it like yesterday. You know what I mean? Like. I didn't like the way that I played yesterday. I thought I made some mistakes. Anyway, but Kike and Renfroe and JD for me. That's pretty much it.
So I have kind of a weird narrative for this next game.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the first thing I would say is that a couple of starts ago, I said, you're really not going to play Luis Castillo. All right, just don't do it. You said, no, I'm doing it. I'm a tournament player. You're getting less than 5% ownership. Yeah, that makes sense. But today he's going to be, I would imagine, pretty chalky. Like right now I have him, depending on where you look, a full 20% probably.
Maybe higher. I would say maybe higher.
Maybe higher. And however, I will also give him a little bit of a narrative bump based on what we said recently. Could this be his first night game?
I mean, it seriously might be. And by the way, it feels like he pitches in Cincinnati every week too.
Yeah, I mean, and I would certainly imagine that is it tougher to hit a changeup at night? I don't know, but it's certainly something. I don't know. Well,
I'll tell you what, it's tough for them to hit him ever. I'll tell you this, just let me real quick. It's only 90 plate appearances, but that's actually not nothing.
Okay.
As a team, they've in those 91 plate appearances, 31 strikeouts, team batting average of 100. I am absolutely going to play Castillo. I understand the ownership. I'm not saying if I have one lineup, he's a lock for it, but he probably would be in my one lineup if I had to build one as of right now. The truth is he's just a better pitcher than he's pitched like. And by the way, he's sort of been back in business the last couple of starts. And,
yes.
And he pitched well, even against this Milwaukee team the other day. Did give up a few runs, but, struck out 7 guys in 5 2/3, got his pitch count up a little bit. If he gets the right pitcher's umpire tonight, we actually do have a slight pitcher's umpire for him. So Tim Timmons is the pitcher's umpire.
He needs it too.
He can really use it. So anytime he gets any sort of boost, it's not the best pitcher's umpire, but it's a good enough one. So I'm into Castillo. I'm going to be playing him today for sure.
Sounds good to me. I have him ranked number 2 right now.
Yeah. And then I also think that, again, it's So Brett Anderson is another guy that historically on big slates we didn't want to go crazy with, right? Like against, because he tends to like not give up as many home runs as you'd think, and he tends to, he used to not walk anybody, but he's gotten a lot more walk happy lately. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this with Cincinnati, because I actually thought they would get more ownership than what I'm seeing projected for them right now. And if people aren't going to play Suarez, Castellanos, Stevenson here because they're priced,
they score 10 runs a game. I mean, for Christ's sake.
What are you gonna do? And plus we get the value of our boy Aquino.
Yeah.
Our pre-show back. That was one of my few good moves yesterday. And even Farmer down, in the shortstop, he's up to 3,100 now, not 2,100 anymore, unfortunately. But there's a lot of ways you could do this stack. I think Cincinnati is a really, really interesting. Maybe we do the Ohio thing tonight and play Cincinnati, Cleveland instead of the California thing, Dodgers and Padres.
Yeah. It's also very possible that Daniel Vogelbach could hit a home run, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not going to pick on Castillo on this slate. I want to, if I'm going to play Vogelbach now that he's a reasonably priced guy, there's enough matchups like there was yesterday with Gutierrez, who just doesn't strike anybody out.
Okay.
That's not the problem. I totally agree. He could always hit one. So could Yelich. I mean, there's a bunch of guys, but for me, I don't think I'm getting there. I do like the Castellanos, Suarez combination and Stevenson. Then you fill it out with Aquino. So that's where I'm at with Cincy. I do think Cincinnati makes some sense. The problem, I just remind everybody, and I know they got lit up yesterday, the Brewers in general have a decent bullpen. But you can, this is a good spot. So I do like maybe a 2 to 4 man, depending on how you want to go. And I would include, I just think you should include Aquino in one of our best value plays.
All
right. Do you want to start off with Tampa Bay, Chicago?
Yeah. And I'll finish with it. I don't like any of it. Let me just double check that, because I spoke a little bit too fast, by the way. We'll get back when we summarize it, but I do actually like the Mets a little bit more than I first mentioned. Yeah, I'm not finding it. The White Sox and or Tampa as in my main builds or my main ideas. Should I be?
No, I don't think that it's them. I think it's interesting that a guy we were playing at this price on a good slate with, look, he's young. He's going to have ups and downs, but the kid's got a ton of talent, McClanahan, that I don't mind if he should absolutely be in the mix of the guys we're talking about, in my opinion. And to be honest with you, maybe even on this slate, because if you're mass entering, I think you are going to be using different pitchers today. And I think McClanahan is an interesting pivot off of Heaney Chalk, for example. It's just such a bad matchup for him.
Yeah, it sure is.
But at the same time, that's the only thing I thought of. And Keuchel, if he was 5.3, I probably would consider him then. But yeah, I think I'm sort of off of it too. Something's happening with Keuchel. He's pitching much, much better in his last,
He ran out of 100. I told you the last game, they really wanted him to get that win. He had 100 plus, right? Yeah, 105 pitches. I remember I had him in that game, and he was struggling at the end. But yeah, there was like a couple of innings where he had seven strikeouts in 3 innings. In innings 2, 3, 4 or something like that. And they're like, whoa, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. On the flip side, I will say though that the White Sox the counter to the McClanahan thing is that when the White Sox are facing a lefty, and no one's going to play them, and they never are get played because they're expensive, but they're expensive because they always hit. So priorities for them would be Tim Anderson, Abreu, Mercedes, Moncada, and Vaughn for me.
Yep.
And you can include Adam Engel in that, depending on
not Grandal.
Not Grandal against the left, unless his name is Ryu.
Okay.
But I do like the White Sox as a contrarian stack. Again, we talked about a number of things that I like already, so I don't know if I'm going to get to it. But I do think the same, the way McClanahan could be good is that he also could get blown up, because this, that's what's going to happen with young pitchers. The problem is you've got a really good bullpen behind him in Tampa Bay, one of the best in baseball. But still, Tim Anderson, I love shortstop today. I think there's everybody at shortstop. I've got 7 shortstops on my list right now. So But yeah, Tim Anderson being the most priority for me. But I do think the White Sox stack is going to go overlooked and definitely has some merit. I just don't know if I can get to all of this stuff.
On another Houston, Texas, on another slate, little bit smaller and maybe a little bit less money, I would take a shot at that Odorizzi thing coming out of the bullpen. I just can't do it on a 15 game slate. Because he's gonna be in the game in the 5th inning. You know what I mean? Like it's so we'd get that win bonus and just a little too expensive to make that work for me. Aside from that, I guess Gibson does tend to give up some hard contact, so I guess Houston has to be in play in somewhat. Not playing Texas hitting. You like Houston at all? I don't know.
So I just want to point out about Gibson just before people get into Houston. Like, we say this every year about him. Gives up hard contact, this and that. The simple fact is he's given up a total of, in 3 games, he's given up home runs, a total of 5 home runs in 11 starts now. All but one of those starts, he's put up more than 14 fantasy points.
Yep. All
but one of those starts, he's gone at least 5 1/3, and he's averaging almost, was that right? 7 innings per start, close to it. 6.5 per start. Sure, it's fine to play Houston here. I am going to be on the side of that. Kyle Gibson has always been a better real life pitcher than he is for DFS, but for some reason, because he's not a good DFS pitcher, people like to pick on him. So I'm not going to be as high on Houston today. I do think the lefties are all firmly in play, but I just like other spots better. And they do, and Houston does, I believe, have the 2nd or 3rd highest run total on the slate. So Kyle Gibson is, just in real life numbers, he's 4-0 this year with a 2.1 ERA. Let's not get crazy. I know Houston has a 5-run total. More times than not, I think that number is really wrong. And by the way, he's been excellent against this, not in terms of strikeouts, not a guy you should be using, I don't think, tonight, but he's been excellent against this team on pretty large volume, 150 plate appearances against him. They're hitting 180 off of him with a total of 3 home runs. That's not a guy who I'm going to look to try and pick on that big slate.
All right, so I'm gonna issue a challenge into this next game. I dare you.
Why didn't we talk? So we're going to assume that McCullers is not going to.
No, he's going to pitch a couple innings.
You think it's just going to be like probably that makes sense. Okay. I'm just thinking out. All right.
They have him as PO in here. You know what I mean? Like he's.
I know. It's weird to me that they would do that and not just let him come back when he's ready to throw 5 innings, but I get it. You don't really want a 5-inning guy anyway in this situation.
So I'm issuing a challenge, not to you. So I'm saying I dare you, not you. I dare all the people out there in fantasy land to actually make Minor 35% owned. I will just be. I just can't wait to play these KC righties against a 35% owned Minor. That would be my pleasure. And if that comes back to get me, peace. That's my take. Now the other thing is this: Minor. He is in a really good position because last night, I don't know exactly what happened.
You mean the righties from Detroit?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I meant Mize. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. Sorry about that. What I was going to say, Minor is something different. Sorry about that. Oh man, I had such delivery too. So Minor, the reason why I was saying Minor is in a good position is that I don't know what exactly happened to Matt Boyd last night. They took him out after only like 3 innings, and he hadn't given up a run, I think, or anything. I don't know if he got hurt.
He got hurt too. Yeah,
he did. And what happened was Detroit just had to go through like a whole bunch of a whole bunch of guys in the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that I'll give these pitchers confused. So Mize. Right, he's going to be in a good position because he's, I think, going to be allowed to. He's going to be allowed to pitch.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. The only problem with Mize is that, like I mention all the time, I mean, you look at the K props for today, and Mize is at 4.5, and that's because you have a KC team that just doesn't strike out that much.
Okay.
He did put up a big game against them earlier this year. Mize did. And I don't think that, I think you'll get a little bit of ownership in some spots in KC. I don't mind taking some shots there, but Mize has been good, kept the ball on the ground. I actually feel like I do like Minor, even though I understand he's going to be owned or whatever. I don't know how much of him I'm going to really.
Detroit's just so bad against lefties. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to not have him ranked high. You know?
Exactly. I mean, he's got a 7K prop, just to give you an example of the difference between the two, which is pretty high. If a slight hitters umpire, nothing special over here. I'm definitely not playing the Detroit Bats today, but I mean, the prices have gone up because Jonathan Scope has become the old Jonathan Scope again all of a sudden for some of these guys. But then they've got a bunch of the nonsense stuff. But you could use, you've got Daz Cameron at the minimum cost. You've got Jake Rogers at a catcher at 2.3K. And as much as I do kind of like Minor, there's always some power that he can give up. I just don't know who I'm really focusing that on.
Yeah, that's the problem.
With the exception of the value guys I just mentioned, hoping sort of they do something. I don't think I'm going to get into anything else.
Now, with that said, as I mentioned, Mize is going to be allowed to go, which is I think, which is sort of good. But I do think that KC for me rates to be kind of a top stack also. I have them ranked right now, like 1, 2, 3, like third actually, like right behind. When you consider value and price and everything between San Diego and then obviously Pittsburgh, but so I might be interested in both in a lot of. So I feel that way about all these Detroit games, right? And I want to, and Seattle games. I want to kind of attack like every side of these things. So Minor is going to rate to be a good play. 35% owned Minor. I don't know. I think, wouldn't you think Castillo might be a little bit better chalk than Minor or no? Or maybe, I don't know. Who is better chalk?
Well, I mean, just based on the history of what they do, it would be Minor because he's basically been pretty great all year. Like, I mean, he's put up his last games, 31, but only 10 against the Minnesota. But even that game, he pitched 7 innings. It's just as a team doesn't strike out a ton and gave a few home runs. 24, 23. He's going 6-7 innings almost every time out, and it's the Detroit team that can't hit lefties. So I would say that Minor is probably the better, safer play because of the K upside and the team he's facing. They both have it though. I think those are your natural. For me, they would be the natural cash game starters for me.
What you want to move ahead?
Let's do it.
What do you think of I mean, these are two totally different ideas, but I have interest in both. Well, I don't know if I could pay 10K for Rogers, right? So I was about to say I don't have that much interest in that, but I'll let you try to talk me into that. What I need you to do is kind of talk me off of Kim at 7,200.
Why are you considering Kim?
I don't know. He's pretty good and he's 7K. I mean,
he's had one start this season over 13 fantasy points. That's a good reason I would not get involved.
7K. He's against Miami. I don't know.
It is Miami. That's true. I don't know. I can't get to.
I told you at the beginning of the slate. It's ugly.
I think you're better off. I think you are playing Rogers here. Like that's especially if no one's going to play him. Like I mean, he could easily be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. And then I know he's 10K. You're paying for it, but you're not. I mean, it doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't make that big of a difference. There's a 2,400.
Well, if you want to play the Padres.
If you want to play the pot, but again, like I said, there's going to be a 2,400 guy you could play instead of a 5,500 guy or 5,200 guy.
Right.
And I'd rather do that than play Trevor Rogers, than play Kim over Rogers. I'm trying to win the pitching spot, and I think that usually I would just avoid Rogers if people were going to play him at this price here. Absolutely not going to do that here. The guy's been really, really good. I think he's legit. I do think St. Louis is a tough matchup, but I've got to look a little further into the pitch type and K versus lefties and stuff. But as of right now, I think Rogers is a terrific way to go, especially on DK more so than FanDuel because of the fact that the quality start. Well, I guess he's been good, but it's a tough. I do think it's somewhat of a tough matchup. But he also stands out as maybe having the best stuff on the slate, and no one's going to play him. So right. I have to have a little bit of interest there.
Well, the guy with the best stuff on the slate is in the next game, but we'll.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. The guy outside of Coors with the best stuff on the slate, and you could even include Urias involved in that too. It's a spot where if there was going to be a heavy owned Trevor Rogers on a small slate, where I would be talking about St. Louis bats. but you're not going to have that situation. You also do have Paul Goldschmidt. Any lefty against Paul Goldschmidt when he's unowned, I'll say is fine, but I'm not going to probably get to it. I already mentioned too many other bats I like.
Well, that's a good job pricing him at 10K, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So now you get back to the mega chalk of the team that was completely shut down last night by the best pitcher in baseball, Gomer.
Well, they might be swapping to the worst pitcher in baseball, no?
Yeah. I mean, okay. So Gigi Gonzalez is not a good pitcher. I'm not going to make an argument that he's a good pitcher by any means. I just would say that, like, okay, the last time he faced this team, he pitched 6 innings and gave up 1 run.
Oh man, are you serious?
You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, this is baseball, but we shouldn't just be so sure of, like,
yeah, I guess
this is an automatic. Oh, they're going to score
Right.
runs. It felt pretty good last night. Oddly enough, like there's 2 bats that are not going to be owned at all in this slate, and that's Hosmer on this team, Hosmer and Jake Cronenworth, because of their prices. So if you do if you are going to go for the San Diego stack, I would encourage you to try and use especially Hosmer in that. Again, and basically no lefties in the bullpen. Not that it matters that much for Hosmer, but I of course San Diego should score the most runs on the slate. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying it's a great matchup. It's a great situation. I think your priorities are Grisham, Tatis, Machado, Myers, Pham in that order. Pham, Myers. Those would be the way that I would have it shaken down. And then you've got the Caratini thing at shortstop, which makes a lot of sense. So San Diego obviously makes a lot of sense, but if you want to find reasons to fade them, it's that Chichi was good against them last time, has weirdly been okay. Like he's given up, had some terrible outings. He had a terrible outing in Miami last time and just got killed. But he usually goes for his 5 innings. He usually gives up a bunch of hits, doesn't walk a ton of guys, and gives up some home runs. But again, he's pitching in most of his home runs this year. In fact, almost all of the home runs he's allowed this year have been away from San Diego. I'm sorry, away from Coors. I believe out of the 11 home runs or 12 home runs he's given up, I think he's only given up 2 in Coors, which is just weird. So there's your arguments for the fade, which I always have to come up with for them. They have a 7.1 run total. We haven't seen that much this year. You don't see that much ever, by the way. So yeah, of course, San Diego. But if you're looking for just an individual bat and you want to try and avoid the whole stack of the game, I think you're looking at Grisham and Tatis as your guys. Yeah, they'll be popular, but a lot of them will mostly be used in stacks. And if you are doing the stacks, I think you want to try and play Hosmer or Cronenworth because they are going to be the low-owned parts of the stack.
Yeah, Grisham would be the cash game guy to put in, I guess, to start off. Is that what people do, by the way? Do people play like stuff like Tatis, like in cash? Do people like pay up like that much?
Yeah, when Tatis gets played in cash at 6K when he's not even in college.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
People play him. He's just always he'll be the most, I'm guessing he's going to end up being the most popular player on their team.
In cash games as well? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and not that I don't love him tonight, but he's the one I don't mind avoiding as much. It scares me, but it doesn't scare me in the sense that I have 6 other shortstops that I think are awesome plays, and they're all much, much cheaper.
Well, let's talk about my lead into the game though. I mean, what do you think about Darvish?
I think that's what I probably will end up doing. Okay. People really aren't going to play him against. Go ahead, I'll take it all. If he really is going to be below 10%. Look, if you could play a combination of Darvish and Rogers, the best pitchers on the slate, possibly. I'm not saying Rogers is necessarily better than Urias, but maybe better for DFS. And you're going to get no ownership on either of them. At some point we got to just say, look, it doesn't matter where they're playing. You know what I mean? They need to get the ball in the air, and we're supposed to have Bill Miller again tonight. That means something. So
I am of the belief that Hugh Darvish is going to be 20% of them after all said.
It's gotta be, right? Like, are they really nobody can be this. Sorry, no offense, but like
all the other options, you know what I mean?
You have the worst team in baseball against right-handed pitching. You're basically the worst hitting team in baseball if you just take away Coors Field, and one of the 3 worst, even including Coors Field. What are we doing? Let's play Darvish.
Blackman and McMahon are good plays. If you don't want to play Darvish, I imagine. I don't need to play Tapia as like a one-off or anything like that.
Yeah.
like 3,700, but whatever. Does Darvish give up stolen bases?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe you could play him.
That's like his one of his big downfalls.
Oh, okay.
And he gives up a lot of solo home runs if he gives up home runs at all. But I just want to point out, this is the last time these two teams played. Now I know it was in San Diego, but is that right? Yeah, that's right. The last time these two teams played, he struck out 10 and had 37 fantasy points. I'm not saying he'll do that again today, but he's got a pitcher's umpire and they have to hit the ball in order to score runs. I don't care how good the hitting weather is if you don't make contact. So I'm very high on Darvish.
Oh, I thought he had Bill Miller. No.
Bill Miller, he does. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Excellent pitcher's umpire, like perfect.
He's the pitcher's umpire. I thought Bill Miller was a hitter's umpire.
No, he's like literally the most extreme pitcher's umpire we have in baseball. And it's weird that he would be doing back-to-back games behind home plate. So I don't really understand how that's possible, but that's what we've got right now. That's what I've got right now. I actually don't know if they ever do that, so that's really strange. But if it is Bill Miller, you can load me up on Darvish today.
What do you think about? I'm not doing this. You feel like playing chalk Andrew Haney? I don't want to do that. You want to do that?
No. I mean, I don't.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking.
I think this is a spot. You also have, again, early projection for umpire, but we have Edwin Moscaso, who's definitely on the extreme hitters umpire side of things. So both of these guys, like, I honestly think I might rather play Montas.
I would.
Yeah. But I mean, again, we mentioned a bunch of other pitching options. Maybe we stick with just the best pitchers, or maybe we include Montas in that group against an Angels lineup that is watered down, even though they've been, better than I think maybe people would have expected. On a different slate, I would be talking about stacking the A's here. Maybe I should even consider it, because not only do you get the leverage, you have the A's are that team that, like, every night seems like by the end of the night they've got 6 to 8 runs or something like that, and they've got a couple home runs. They've got power throughout the lineup. You get Pinder back in the lineup, although he's expensive on DraftKings today at 4.2. Everything but their 7, 8, 9 is not pretty, but 1 through 6, I really like their lineup here, and I don't think I'm going to end up getting to it because of the prices, but they are a stack you could consider maybe on FanDuel. And I'm not going to say I will have no Heaney lineups. The guy's got upside. I'll do a quick search here on his.
I don't think I'll have any Heaney lineups.
You say?
I mean, I'll have him like in MM. You know what I mean? If I crunch them, whatever. I doubt I'm going to get there given that ownership.
Especially with a hitter's umpire, which is really like the nightmare situation for Heaney against a team that he's faced a lot of. To his credit, he's kind of dominated this team. And again, not a lot of. He's only 110 plate appearances. They're hitting 150 off of him. And oddly enough, Elvis Andrus somehow has 3 home runs off of him in 27 at-bats, which I didn't even know Elvis Andrus has 3 home runs. Anyway, so I would be on board with maybe a little bit of the Oakland bats, and probably I'm mostly on the Heaney fade train, but he'll probably end up in a lineup or 2 of mine.
Arizona, San Francisco, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Arizona, San Francisco. I don't think I want to chase the Sammy Long thing. He came out of the bullpen in a long reliever situation last time, and it was like a 2-game slate, so I remember it, and it was really funny. I was very lazy. I didn't pay attention to it. When I crunched it, I got like almost like 100% of him, but I'm like, well, what? I'm not doing that. Who the hell is this guy? And I didn't play him, and he got. I don't know if he won the slate, but he was like 10% owned actually on like a 2-game slate, and he scored 20 fantasy points. I'm not going to play a guy to get that many strikeouts like that.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, so I have nothing in this game except for Brandon Belt on FanDuel.
Me neither.
Brandon Belt is too cheap. Too good of a hitter. So the other pitcher that is going to be unowned that again, you have the best pitchers on the slate are projected currently to be unowned. So I'm going to lean more that direction. And I think Urias fully fits that. It is kind of scary against Philly. But you're talking about a lot of historic numbers versus what these guys have been doing recently. They've got a lot of guys who can hit lefties. Urias is a good enough pitcher, especially at home. He always is dominant. that I definitely want to take some shots at an unowned Urias here. I don't even understand. We've got a great, the extreme pitchers umpire in LA. It's good hitting weather, but Urias is a really, really good pitcher. And I just don't understand the best pitchers on the slate being Darvish, Urias, and Rogers, and no one's going to play them. Okay. I'll forget about everything else and just play those guys and play whatever stacks I want.
Is Urias a better pitcher than Luis Castillo?
Of course he is.
Okay.
I mean, not to say that Castillo couldn't become better or whatever, but Urias is, yeah, the guy's never had like he doesn't have like a series of bad outings. You know what I mean? He's basically like, what do you want from your pitcher? He's just, the only reason he's not considered a star or one of the, he hasn't played in all-star games and stuff is because the Dodgers had an 8-man rotation with like the back end of their team, the guys they were using for their bullpen were just dominant real life starters. I mean, we had Buehler like that for a minute. We have guys like Dustin May who would have been starting for every other team in baseball. They're just too deep. So yeah, Urias, I mean, just look at Urias's game log and you know what you're going to get. Hasn't had one outing this season where he didn't pitch 5 innings, which is not to say that's a winning you a tournament. His strikeout per 9 is what are we at now? A little bit, I'd say he's above average for a good pitcher, but more in real life, just overall a very, very good pitcher. And it's a good Phillies lineup in the sense that they're patient and they have guys who can hit lefties, but I have no problem using just the best pitchers on the slate like this. So that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
And again, I don't expect any ownership on him, which is bizarre. I don't like picking on Eflin as much as other people in the industry used to try to. I think he's actually a better pitcher than he gets credit for. He will give up some power. The lefties would be the ones you'd want to target. Unfortunately for the Dodgers, the best lefties are not in the lineup, except for the guy who I'm going to keep living and dying with is Gavin Lux. But we also do have a ton of shortstops today. So it's maybe more of a play on FanDuel. And then because he goes deeper a little bit, you got Beatty, who you could use, McKinstry, more FanDuel plays for me, the Dodgers. But I do like the Dodgers as I like the lefties, and even like or Will Smith over there where he's cheap. Mookie's a little expensive for me to play him against a guy who's pretty good against righties. But I think the Dodgers as a whole, I expect them to have a good night tonight and good hitting weather, like I said. I just don't love, it's not like we have Bellinger, Muncy, and Seager in there. Those are three all-stars, 3 of the best hitters in baseball, and they're not in the lineup. So it's not quite the stack you want to try and get involved with as currently constructed.
So as we're going to do a golf thing after this, if we're going to play our game, like top guy under 7K to make the cut, we get to our last game where you get J.A. Happ at under 7K against Seattle. And I'll just say that, like, right now, he's my top point per dollar play on the slate, my top, value play on the slate. And it's, that's just what it is. I also don't mind Chris Flexen as like just a ridiculous SP2. But I don't think I'm going to need to do that. So I'm gonna probably attack Seattle like everybody else does usually, but I don't know. I think people are gonna run out of teams and run out of room, and I don't know how much people are gonna play Happ today. We'll see. I mean, if he turns out to get all the owner, I can't imagine him getting that much ownership considering, as you've been saying. I mean, he's been shit. It's the best to put it mildly.
Yeah.
If he starts to get ownership, I mean, significant ownership, then we could start talking about playing Seattle. Which certainly makes a lot of sense. You play Dylan Moore 2,600. I mean, there's stuff you could do.
Yep.
Dylan Moore, he's rated to be really, really chalky. I guess people are onto that idea. But that's
like base position eligibility that's given.
Oh, yeah. So that's where I am. I mean, I don't know if I'll end up actually doing it, but I probably will. I'll probably be a sucker and play J.
Yeah, I'm not going to play J. Happ. I don't see any reason to. There's if he hits his ceiling and gets 20 fantasy points,
right,
good for him. If there was a matchup that you could get him in there, like this would make a lot of sense. And to his credit, he's pitched 6 innings, 5 innings in his last 4 games. Even in those games, he pitched 5 innings against the Yankees and he had 1 fantasy point.
Yeah.
He doesn't strike anybody. He doesn't strike out guys, and he gives up tons of hits.
Well, let's talk about this. So this is actually decent DFS theory. So we talk about this a lot when you have with individual hitters. We have individual hitters who don't strike out or strike out a lot when they play guys when they're going against pitchers that don't strike anybody out. That's like an upgrade for them.
Mm-hmm.
What about when you have a team that strikes out a lot, like Seattle, against a guy that doesn't strike anybody out? Is that more in favor? Is that more a license to say, "Ooh, let's take Seattle," or "Ooh, let's take Happ"?
I think it's an argument to may say both. I think you could. I've heard you.
Okay.
You'll hear the same argument made both ways if you
Okay.
listen to all the shows today and things like that. But
Okay.
it doesn't feel right to me on this with all this great hitting spots to stack Seattle.
Right.
But even Kyle Seager and the lefty makes a lot of sense at his price. Dylan Moore, as you already mentioned, stands out as an extremely good value play. Haniger, I will absolutely would if you're going to make any sort of mini stack of 3 men or more, I think you should include Haniger in it. He's expensive. He'll be low owned. And Happ just has been just getting lit up. You've got guys who I don't really want to play other than that. I guess Ty France would be the next one, but I don't want to use my first base spot too badly on him. He's 3K. So I see the argument for the Seattle stack. I actually think that the brain play might be the play Minnesota here. Like,
yeah, maybe.
They're too good of an overall offense to have no ownership versus flexing, but we've mentioned that about a lot of teams, so that's why. Yeah, obviously you can't own everybody. I will say that Miguel Sano against a low strikeout righty is going to be a guy who I do like to try and get in. And Trevor Larnach at 3.1 even, his price has gone up. No one's playing him. He has not been as good as we'd hope. He's one of the rookies who hasn't been quite as good, but he's hitting the ball much harder the last few games. And I'm just going to keep betting on this kid because I think he's talented. Kirilloff also. But I don't think I'm doing the full stack thing. Like I just think that I like a few of the bats, and you can always play Donaldson and Cruz if you do want to make a full stack out of it with the guys I mentioned.
Yeah, Flexen is he's a little speculative. Okay.
All right. So just to recap real quick. So my favorite values that I've got here, I've got a long list of them, but the ones who I will probably be using the most would be Larnach. Larnach is a little bit more expensive. He's over 3K, 3.1. But Dylan Moore, DJ Stewart, Bobby Dahlbeck, depending, even that one I'm iffy on. Aquino, another sort of questionable one, but those are my favorite value ones. We've also got guys like Newman, Evans, from the Detroit, from Pittsburgh, McKinney, that we mentioned, Gittins already. There's a lot of guys who we could sort of consider, but I think Evans, Dahlbeck, Aquino, Moore, Stewart, and Larnach are the main ones for me that I'm going to be squeezing into.
Yeah, you basically dealt with everybody. I would just stress that he's going to be obviously ridiculously owned, but Grisham is probably is kind of a standout. He's got a decent mixture of actually being able to do something, and he's cheap enough. You know what I mean? Where he raises a value play also. So I do like him a lot. And as we mentioned before, Tatis. Real quick, I just want to look at FanDuel just for a quick second to see where my pitchers were over there. See if I got any. It's the same shit. Castillo is probably my favorite over there as well. No, well, ugh.
I think Darvish is the best play over on FanDuel.
He's just got to be, right.
It's just my take. I mean, I'll take the Darvish, Rogers, Urias route that no one wants to do, and I'm just 100% in on it.
Maybe Minor's just a freaking lock against that team. I don't know.
But is Minor, like, even if he has a good outing, like, you're telling me that none of those other three guys I mentioned are going to have a better game than him?
Right. It's not like Minor's like 6,800 or anything like that. You know,
right. Exactly. And then just to talk real quick about a few other things, we didn't talk about all the extreme hitters umpire for Heaney in that Oakland game.
Okay.
Extreme pitchers.
Screw that then.
Extreme pitchers for Urias. Extreme pitcher for Darvish in Colorado, and also maybe to less fully stack, having a little bit of argument that way. Extreme hitters in the J Happ game. So that's another reason I sort of like the Seattle, Minnesota side of things, the hitting. And then
I can't imagine that anybody that's watching the YouTube videos is not already signed up at least for True DFS for our site. But like all the stuff that I'm referring to, all our sheets and stuff like that are up there.
Mhm.
Free for like a couple more days, maybe. So if you're not, I mean, you should check out truedfs.com. But I presume that most of the people at this point that are watching YouTube videos are on there. But.
Yeah, a bunch of people did sign up, which we really appreciate, guys. And like we're excited to get this going. We're getting better and we're getting more and more out there. But really, check out Sheets to Sheets. I think they're really, really helpful. So, and we will be with you tonight, or at least I'll be with you. Are you going to be around Sheets at 6 Eastern?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, wonderful. So we will see you guys to touch up on anything that we didn't cover. And
stay tuned for golf.
All right. Good luck to everybody. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.
Okay.